It's like a little acid trip there.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. Happy Wednesday. How's everyone doing?
Happy hump day.
Cheers. I need this just as much as I need it every night, but I definitely need it tonight.
If we didn't have a show, this could just be a Zoom call with us bitching and drinking. Probably the same amount of shots.
It's pretty much, yeah, that's our MO. Especially Tuesday nights, I realize Pat and I have our real what are we focusing on? Which graphics? What are we doing? What's interesting? And I wake up on Wednesday morning and have to check my notes and texts because I realize by the time we're done with our call, I've had so much to drink. I need to get back in it.
I think I should secretly make that the show. Like I should record our rant sessions for like a year and then make it a podcast afterwards.
Just secret recordings.
Yeah, you wouldn't care, right? You sign the waiver.
Super. It's like, that's the big tech, big bro. The cookies are all, I've signed on to all the cookies by default.
Right.
I just assume you're recording and broadcasting everything. We did once have a show like at the very beginning where for the first 10 minutes, we didn't realize we hadn't pressed to start the podcast. And it was gold. God, everything we talked about, it was brilliant. It's the wittiest I've ever been.
So I did a show with someone who was, I won't say who it was, but she's very shit-lib adjacent. And, and 45 minutes into it, she's like, oh, we're not recording. Let's do it over. And the funny thing is, she went through the whole show like it was scripted. Like it was like I was hearing the exact same. Like, your organization and mine are not the same.
Yeah, don't mess with perfection. If it worked, you're just going to recreate the moments.
But I was so bored doing the entire thing over again.
Yeah.
Like, I struggle to have enthusiasm for anything as it is, but
I'm not going to take that as an insult. No, I'm kidding.
No.
I hear you. I understand that. That's a big thing in acting is recreating it and making it feel new each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not an actor.
Not an actor.
You saw me try to. No, you haven't seen me try to act, but I've tried, and it's awful.
I would love to see that actually. Tell me about your week as people are kind of tuning in.
I literally don't even have anything to report. I got a parking ticket this morning. That's always good. You would think with Sacramento being completely destroyed with all the trees down and but different public service.
They got to make their money.
Their job doesn't depend on how the trees are, so it doesn't matter. But my own fault. Where I live, we have 6 parking spots for 100 people living in this apartment complex. So it's a fight for those spots, and it's a fight even more for those spots since the trees fall on the other spots in the street.
Oh my God!
And trees have been taking out cars left and right here from the last storm. So
what are they focusing that for? That's ridiculous.
Well, they just do it anyway. It doesn't matter. It's
lame.
Revenue. So
lame. ACAB, even what is
traffic cops are especially bad.
Especially
ATAB, all ATACAB. How was your week? What's going on there?
My week's okay. In the never-ending saga of our new puppy, Lucky, we are letting her, and this is, I'm sure, a big no-no. If any dog trainers are listening, they will, chastise me. But we have opened our bedroom up for her. We're doing one room at a time, so she doesn't decide a new place is her pee place. But so, of course, she jumps in the bed, and she sleeps with us, and I am always hot anyway. So now I have this 100-pound heat bag on me all night long. So I never sleep that great, but now especially I'm not sleeping great, but she is very cute. So, yeah.
Well, I grew up with dogs and cats on the bed. No rules about that.
Yeah, it's sweet. I mean, I like it, it's all right. It's better when I'm not trying to sleep, but it's pretty good. Have you been checking out I know we're going to talk a little bit about it, but the World Economic Forum is really, I think it's it's not dead, because clearly they're all still the same people who are making all the decisions that are destroying our world. But I think the what is it? The bloom is off the rose, or the like.
Yeah,
I think people used to think they were like cool, and now they're not even inviting Elon Musk, apparently, and he lied about it.
Lost their shine or something.
Yeah.
But is that the clips we have are from the old? Didn't we pull some?
Yeah. Well, yes, we do. Which I'm excited to show. Yeah, we do. We have historian.
Yeah, the guy mouthing off at the forum, which was excellent, most excellent.
Yeah.
It was the World Economic Forum. Is that where they were requiring masking and testing and all that stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was going to show it in our COVID part, but I mean, that's the other thing, is that, and I know we're going to talk about it when we get into COVID and stuff, but I read something, like it was a tweet about a year and a half ago, and it was directed towards vaccine skeptics. And the person was like, you really think that the richest nations in the world are going to hoard this vaccine if they don't think that it's actually a good vaccine that is going to have benefits? Now, of course, it has not, it's not currently working so well against the new variants. But like, that was that person's way of like, I got to trust it, even though I don't trust Big Pharma or whatever, but like the wealthiest, whitest nations in the world are hoarding it, not sharing it. They think it's good for them. And like, that's the World Economic Forum. All of those people are the ones who have decided not to share, that's the Bill Gates. They're not going to share the vaccine, but boy, they have PCR testing. And I'll show this, but they're like, you can't even get in if you haven't done a PCR test. Your badge, the electronic chip in it, shuts down. They have, air filters.
That sounds like China. It sounds a lot like China.
Yeah. Zero COVID. Who knew? Oh no, don't protect my one life. The windows are open. Like, they have pictures of people in these like, billionaire rooms, and they're all wearing like big heavy coats because it's cold there. And clearly they're cleaning the air. They are ventilating. Right. They do not believe COVID's over, because it's not.
Yeah. And there's a big old alligator moat outside, of course.
Yeah.
That's all they're missing, because that's the timeline we're living in right now.
Yeah, it really does seem that way. Well, I don't know. Should we just get to it?
Let's do it. Hash it out.
All right. What do we got this week? We got Twitter files, strike time, timeline cleanse, ruckus or fuck us, profile a grifter, and faking consent. Let's spin the wheel.
And shots, lots of shots.
Oh God, shots.
Which we are going to take off when they hit this week.
Yeah,
baby.
Set the tone early.
That is the way to start a show. Thank goodness, because my first one was a little light. It's time to catch up with where I should be.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, punch up pod shot glasses, which we need.
They're a little smaller. I know we have to do our caption contest again.
We've been slacking on the caption.
We have been. Cheers.
We're just making too much money off our streaming fees.
The grift that keeps on giving.
The grift.
All right. Spin.
Yeah, baby.
All right. This is the feel good. This is a feel good segment, sort of. This is it. This is it. So, just a reminder of why people should be striking. Union labor wages compared to non-union labor. All workers, if you are in a union, you make 19% more than non-union workers. And then it goes on from there. I mean, in much bigger discrepancies depending on which, demographic you belong to, but unions have power. and they are scared of that power.
Strikes. I mean, I want to say literally, but that might be overusing that word, but I can't come up with an example of strikes not working to gain something for the people that striked.
Which is why Union Joe shuts down the strike when he can and gives, talks the big game about Amazon, but then gives them a $10 billion contract with the government.
But even the threat of striking forced not to strike. They got something they wouldn't have gotten before.
Right. Well, the rail workers got one sick day.
Did they get one? I don't know.
I think that was in the plan that Biden put together, his team put together for them.
Yeah. We were trying before the show to come up with like what the hell's going on with the rail workers now, because initially we were told that there was a lot of reporting that some of the factions were interested in a wildcat strike, which is striking against the union votes, union leadership, and nothing has happened. So I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, and now they're seeing there's the case that's coming before the Supreme Court, and I don't know, did they end up ruling on it where striking workers would be held liable for any damages done to property of the companies they're striking against, even if it's not willful or even if they tried their best to avoid it. So in this case, it was the case involves cement truck workers, and everyone knew they were going to strike. They kept the cement trucks going so that the cement went dry. But apparently the owners did not continue that. And so while the cement truck workers were striking, the cement hardened. And now the case is the business trying to sue the striking workers for property damage, even though they tried, hard to avoid that. But I mean, the truth is, like, the whole point of a strike is to cause financial detriment to the people who are holding out on your wages, on your benefits, right? So like the whole point of a strike, it's not a parade, right? It is to exact some kind of consequence to these people.
Right. And then just think of your own job. If whatever job, I work for an electrician. If I'm like, I don't like the way things are going, I'm out of here. It's like, well, can you just handle this, and this, and then be out of here? No, that's not how this works. It's not a one-way contract. And that's the problem, is capitalism wants it to be a one-way contract.
It sure does. And boy, watching, and I mean, we've shown some of the clips, how the way it's always framed, like why, right before the holidays, why do the rail workers want to put people in this bind? The whole country will come to a shutdown. Well, yeah, but like they never say the same thing to the CEOs, to the Warren Buffetts of the world.
No, and it had the press frame the whole thing as, can you imagine that the strike might happen because politicians won't give them a day off or 2 days off? If that was the whole framing of this thing, this would have been over in a hurry. And, but they choose not to. But anyway, this is the positive. This is us being positive. Can you guys tell? This is as good as it gets right here.
All right, so let's talk about some of the strikes going on.
So we got Amazon.
Right.
What do we got? Amazon labor union demands Amazon recognize and bargain with the union. So they're it's still fighting to be fighting to recognize the union.
Yeah. So like even that JFK 8 that voted to form a union, then Amazon just basically blows them off for, what has it been, almost a year now, where they have not come to the table to negotiate a deal. So now,
we got the same tweet right there, don't we?
Look at that, the two of us.
I'm deleting it.
Okay. And this is just more, demonstration, of course, that Wendy's is going to double their stock buybacks to the tune of $500 million and double their dividends and to reward shareholders and executives, while 87% of their workers make less than $15 an hour. It's the highest rate of poverty wages at any fast food chain except McDonald's.
So, that tells you don't go to Wendy's, don't go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Let it be known throughout the land that you are protesting them. We got another strike happening in South Carolina for Dollar General workers.
Yep.
For fighting working conditions, wage theft, and poverty pay. I mean, that's the whole gamut. If you're not solidly in the middle class, that's what you're fighting for.
But I mean, who's even solidly in the middle class anymore? It's kind of amazing, right? Like, I feel like these are the things we talked about when we talked about the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and like, before there were big labor movements. And here we are back again. It's all been allowed to dissipate. So, I mean, I'm so thrilled that people are clawing our way back, but it is despicable that we have gotten to this point, truly.
Yeah, and the railway strike really could have been a game changer, and that's where our government stepped in. If you see what's happening in the UK, they've got a record number of people striking across a number of industries. We do too here, but not to the same level that the UK does. But the railway strike would have put us over the top. But just let's look. They got 100,000 civil servants striking, 150,000 teachers and sports staff in Wales, 70,000 university workers, tens of thousands of train drivers. And of course, they're putting forth an anti-strike bill now. Right. That sounds sort of familiar, but it's in industry wide. It's not just affecting the rail strikers.
Nationally, right? Yeah, that's in the UK. Yeah, that's
in the UK.
Yeah. What is his name? Rishi Sunak? Yeah. Yeah, they're going to make striking basically illegal.
Right. And then here's another, I mean, this was in the last graphic, but the UCU is their version of university teachers union, more or less, right, for university. But here we have, and this is the peak hypocrisy.
It is really galling. I mean, truly jaw-dropping. So the slide 2 slides ago was in the UK, they're making these anti-strike laws. And the Biden administration's condemning the government's anti-strike laws. U.S. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh said, "I would not support anything that would take away from workers." Staring at him in December 2022 railway strike.
The most pro-union president ever literally forces people to work
against their will. I mean, it's so vile. It is so vile. I still can't get over it. And I still can't get over the squad, apart from one person, Rashida Tlaib, I think, sending them all back to work, forcing them back to work.
They're still saving their leverage for something.
Hold your breath, everybody.
I just want to say, I resisted Fraud Squad forever.
Yeah.
And I still don't like really the framing of Fraud Squad. But look, when it came out with FTV, Force the Vote, it was, well, if they don't do this one thing,
right,
they're necessarily a Fraud Squad. And I reserve the right to say, well, let's see what they're going to do. They gave us reasons they were going to not do that tactic and leverage their vote for other purposes later. But they haven't leveraged anything ever, not once. All the things
apparently they're doing a lot in secret.
Yeah. Oh, they're getting all the secret stuff done.
All secret stuff.
Change everything.
Well, we're not going to tell you about it, but trust us, it's happening. Lots of stuff going on behind the scenes.
Veering off from strike, but
anyway, so I think we have a couple of do we have a strike? There's this guy in the Midwest. I think he's called Marxist Midwest Marx. Anyway, I thought it was kind of a fun TikTok video about taking back our power. Here we go.
You can't just take rich people's money. Why not? They took it from us. How else do you think somebody gets a single billion, let alone hundreds of billions? You could get paid $1 million a day and still have to work 1,000 days at $1 million to get just 1 billion. People are out here with hundreds of billions. Well, it's stock appreciation. That's how they got it. Okay, how does a stock appreciate? It's valuable. Where does value come from? From people doing work. Oh, your company is going to make all the cars electric, going to take us to Mars, going to cure cancer, going to do whatever. Who's going to do that? Workers are going to do that. Without them doing it, your company is valueless. people producing the value do not get the wealth. It all goes to one guy who takes the value from everybody working for him and now has hundreds of billions of dollars. So take it back. Unionize their companies. Set up all possible paths of compensation to benefit workers. That's what they did to create billionaires in the first place. Just reverse it. If that sounds crazy, it's not any crazier than what we have now, which is a single person with who could lose $200 billion and still be the second richest person on earth at the same time that 2/3 of the country is living paycheck to paycheck. That's crazy. Pick any metric. The system that we have right now is a joke, and it's only working for the people who set it up to work that way.
I really like that for so many reasons. One, it just like makes it a very simple sort of idea, but also, you know, the thing that we hear so often about now is not the time and we need unity and, you know, give Joe Biden time and all that kind of stuff is that, you know, you can never forget that the second you aren't advocating for workers' rights or for the working class, it's that void is filled because it is constantly coming at them from their donors, from Wall Street, from the military industrial complex. Like they don't let up for a second. The reason that Pete Buttigieg had the most billionaire donors and then they all transferred over to Biden and everything is because they knew they were already advocating. They weren't waiting to see how it all worked out, you know? So like they created this system that is destroying our country. I mean, it's just so exhausting, right? Like, but you can't ever let up.
And I think no matter where you land on Fraud Squad, the squad themselves, I mean, you have to look at everything that's happening and say, these people are not going to save us. The Democratic Party is not going to save us. It's workers and strikes and boycotts. That's the only power we have. We're not going to take it. You can't pass legislation that's going to hurt corporations and at any level, you know, you can't, it's just not going to happen. The most union president we've ever had just forced people not to fucking strike. And that's the Democratic Party that's supposed to save us. So, I mean, when he says take it back, I mean, we have to take it back. We can't just say it's all electoral politics, vote for progressives. I mean, by all means, keep voting for progressives. I'm not against that, but like, they're not going to save us. That illusion needs to fucking die. Yeah.
No, they're not even going to raise their voices or, you know, step out of line. So they're definitely not going to work again. And even again, you know, I know we say this all the time, but like they talk about not taking corporate money, but they vote in line with all the people who take corporate money. So what difference does it make? You know, it makes their hands are just as dirty at this point. I mean, certainly when they vote to increase, you know, military funding or for cop funding or for the Iron Dome or for, you know, forcing people back to work. Like, I mean, who cares?
Well, I particularly love that we're in the middle of a fucking pandemic and they haven't connected Medicare for all to the pandemic. Or, you know, they've said the Medicare for all will be great, but that's different from saying, if you don't tell people why we need it, like that there's a crisis now, that this government isn't responding now to the moment,
right?
Nobody sees the need for it. Like you could leverage the shit out of this right now if you just criticize Biden accurately on his
publicly every chance you get, instead of falling in line and giving him an A+ and pretending, by the way, I mean, this is one of the biggest travesties, I think, to have this, you know, progressive caucus or group or whatever not talk about COVID at all anymore.
It's amazing. And they barely did from the start, to be honest. I mean, they did when Trump was in power.
Yeah.
When Biden took over, next to nothing.
No.
All the shit talking they said about monthly payments. I mean, they might tweet it. Oh, we're gonna get a monthly payment, you know.
They were waiting for Republicans to regain control of the House so that they could pretend to advocate for us again. You don't want to do it when there's a chance that it could pass and make clear that most Democrats are not in line with their actual constituents or the constituents of the whole country, because we know that Medicare for all is majority popular across every political spectrum. Of course it is. Nobody wants to get sick and die or go bankrupt or homeless because of medical bills. Nobody likes fighting with insurance companies. Nobody. So the fact that they aren't leveraging the power that they would have, and then this idea that like to not create anything divisive within the party in Congress means that you're not advocating for the people who voted for you to get there to advocate for them. So you'd have a much better chance of maintaining your seat if you actually did what you were put there to do.
Right, because their public position is not winning over anyone to progressive values.
No.
Which is they're saying, well, you know, because we're popular, we're becoming more mainstream. That's going to make it more progressives electable. But how, like, you're not contrasting anything you believe in to what's happening. They don't even own the fact that our government's run by corporations anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's
a real abdication of duty. And it really does make you feel like there is no hope in electoral politics with the people we have there now. But we should, all right. Yeah. What were you going to say? We're moving on.
I was going to put this on.
Yeah. We should probably move on. We should move on.
Yeah, baby.
We leaked into too many categories.
I know. I'm a little bit bouncing today. It's one of those days. I can always use a shot though.
They're all related.
Always use it. I mean, that is true. I'll like.
I forgot to remove it.
Oh,
this one's for you.
Oh wow, shot.
That's delicious.
Oh.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Profile a grifter.
And our grifter of the week is Robert Malone.
Dr. Robert
Oh, is he?
Malone.
I don't know if he's even a doctor. No, he's a doctor.
Listen, he invented the mRNA vaccine.
Yeah, that's the claim. Let's go through some of this stuff.
Okay, let's go.
All of these graphics are going to be on the left.
What did you do to me?
Lila was getting too much FaceTime.
I'm going to try and go.
Sick of that. Oh, which way do I have to go? I have to go over here. All right.
I'm going to watch you while you read this out loud.
Okay, so Dr. Malone, I mean, he's one of the top, like, every week I think I want to go through one of these COVID minimizing grifters. I don't know. Maybe we'll just do grifters to include everybody, but
yeah.
Dr. Malone is one of the top ones because he allegedly invented the vaccine. He sells himself on the shows as the inventor of mRNA vaccines, tech used by Pfizer and Moderna for their COVID shots, and says he doesn't get the credit he deserves for their development. While he's involved in some of the early research into the tech, his role in its creation was minimal at best, say half a dozen COVID experts in research, including 3 who worked for Dr. Malone. So, who is Dr. Malone? Welcome back, Lila.
Thanks.
Well, he's selling a book. I mean, that's one thing. That doesn't make you a fraud, but who he is, he's exploiting the fact that data-driven course correction is inherent to the scientific process to peddle disinformation, Dr. Rasmussen said. It's extraordinarily dishonest and morally bankrupt. And these clips come from sorry, I didn't sort them out. The New York Times article, PolitiFact did some of the corrections, we'll see. But you can't dismiss it because it's PolitiFact. You can if you want to. That's what all the pro Malone folks will say. Oh, you just can't trust PolitiFact. We'll dispute the facts that we're going to put up here. But in addition to his regular appearances on conservative shows, Dr. Malone has more than 134,000 subscribers to his Substack newsletter. About 8,000 pay the $5,000 monthly cost, he said, which would amount to at least $31,000 in monthly revenue. So that's, he's making 30 grand a month just from his show. He sells the book. He probably gets paid for appearances. Mentions on social media, cable television, and in print and online news outlets have soared to more than 30,000 so far this year.
I think the bottom part also that he's been directly involved in Pepsid research, having received a $21 million grant in 2020 from the federal government to test out the drug as a treatment for the coronavirus in combination with hydroxychloroquine or remdesivir. So,
right,
whenever sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, and he pushed both of those and still does
right.
as being utilized by the government. They're against those things, but there were no studies. There was a study of like 10 people, literally 10 cases that said ivermectin was successful or whatever, or Pepsid. This is in the Pepsid case,
right?
Was a successful treatment. And then the follow-up studies where there were like 10,000 people involved say that was all bullshit.
Right.
So here's this guy paid dollars to,
I mean, like 20 million, right?
$20 million.
$20 million grant. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people are like, well, you know, you're stumping for big pharma if you are pro-vaccine. And you know, there are problems with these vaccines. There are certainly problems with big pharma. There's a lot of problems with, you know, silencing dissent or questioning, not releasing the patent. Like there's a million problems. But to act like Malone or some of these other grifters have some sort of purity in there, and when they come to the table to argue against it, and then you see that, of course, he's making millions of dollars off of trying to sell something different.
Exactly. But, you know, if your claim was strictly around the vaccine, that's fine. But like all these guys have to take every path of anti-science they can to support their views. And if half of their viewers believed in science instead of what they were saying, if they did their research and followed up to what people were saying in response to this fucking idiot, that might change some of their views. So anyway, first off, he didn't invent the thing. He was part of 12 doctors or so. He was in part of one phase of this thing.
Right.
The people involved say he wasn't critical to any of it. Anyway, let's look at some of the claims. Hello.
All right, claim. The coronavirus spike protein interacts with the blood-brain barrier with a risk of brain inflammation. These genetic vaccines are leaky, Malone said at the January 23rd Defeat the Mandates rally in Washington, D.C.
Right. So the whole leaky thing you'll hear once in a while. Oh, they're leaky. And that's the blood-brain barrier is important because if you get an infection in the brain, you can get a swelling and easily die. So this one of all the, you know, he's not necessarily wrong. You do find some leaking a little bit. But to sum it up, he's not wrong in acknowledging the spike protein is detectable in the blood of some vaccinated people. But those levels are incredibly small, too tiny to be toxic, and go away in a few days as the vaccine produces antibodies that wipe away those proteins. Antibodies, either from vaccination or previous infection, stop those proteins from ever reaching the blood-brain barrier.
You know, I think that's part of the thing that is the most insidious about a lot of these people is his expertise. I mean, even if he wasn't the sole person who invented it, clearly, like, he's in the room, he's at a certain level of knowledge that's way beyond most of our levels of knowledge, right? So he can say some things that have some glimmer of truth, and it's very difficult for a normie to respond to it in any kind of intelligent way. And so then it really becomes like, well, which
Did you just call me a normie?
Sorry, a non-medical person. You know, it becomes really difficult to refute. And so you then have to go to the people you trust. And I think, again, one of the most pernicious parts of all of this that's been exposed is how few people, for me at least, that I feel like I can trust anymore, because I think a lot of people are absolutely protecting big pharma. They're absolutely protecting the Democratic, you know, leadership. They're absolutely like, so like their judgment then also becomes a little suspect, and it puts everybody in this position of, you know, do your own research, which I know they make fun of, you know, like people who are swallowing the party line whole hog. Prom joke, just kidding. I was waiting for you to say something. You know, they make fun of the people who do their own research. And yet then we're told, you know, by the Leanna Wens and the CDC and Rochelle Walensky, well, do your own research depending on the CDC map in your area. And if you feel like, you know, you have the tools and personal responsibility, and then of course they change the maps and they take away some of the tools, and some of the tools aren't as effective. And again, like, he is a grifter and he's disgusting. But I think part of the reason that there is this growth in people following people like Malone is absolutely because of our government, and the people who are supposed to be protecting us are clearly captured by big pharma.
Yeah, I mean, and this guy, just so people know, his argument is that the vaccines were never safe. They're not safe. You shouldn't trust them. He took Moderna. He's got 2 shots of Moderna. So the alleged inventor of this unsafe technology took 2 shots of this unsafe technology. For one, but I mean, like all their claims. I mean, look, you can just piece by piece look at the stuff he says. So his argument is that only the passage of time will know what lung damage occurs to kids, right? So, I mean, that makes sense. You don't know what's going to happen to your kids. These vaccines can damage your children. They may damage their brains, their heart, their immune system, their ability to have children in the future, right? So,
and by the way, so may COVID, like getting infected with COVID may also, it's like, that's also something that he always omits.
Yeah, they never can weigh the vaccine risk that they allege against the COVID risk that they ignore completely, which makes absolutely no sense. If you're a doctor, you can see the disease versus the potential of possibly getting a little bit of the disease. But anyway, I just want to break this down a little bit. So the idea, explanation that time frame is completely made up. This idea that somehow that something's going to pop up 10 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, it illustrates a basic misunderstanding of how vaccines work. So here's a doctor from Vanderbilt called in to question this doctor. And I challenge people that understand vaccines to refute this stuff. Okay, so first you have 3 responses to a vaccine. The first, I'm skipping ahead, right? The first is an allergic response to vaccines and ingredients. That's 15 to 30 minutes. You have swelling and deal with it while you're at the office. That's why they have you stick around and wait, right? And that's where a lot of the issues happen. People have vaccine problems,
right?
Predominantly in the first 15 to 30 minutes. Second type of vaccine reaction a person can have is an inflammatory response. Most people experience this in days to a week after they're vaccinated. That's why a lot of people have arm pain, fatigue, achiness, vaccine. That's where I get sick. My arm hurts like hell. That tells you the body is responding to it. But some people over respond to it, have issues, and vaccine deaths happen. I mean, this is where some real things can, it's a danger. Right. Finally, the third way a vaccine might trigger some issue in the body would be through some kind of abnormal response to vaccination. This can happen in the body as the body is refining its response to a vaccine in the weeks to month after a vaccination. There may be some genetic risk factors at play or medical reasons. Some people have an unusual immune response at this point. This is where you might see something like Bell's palsy after a vaccine, or you might see Guillain-Barré syndrome. But can those things happen years after a vaccine is administered? There's nothing left to continue to cause problems. It's because the vaccine has left your body. For mRNA vaccines, it takes about 36 hours, and the subsequent immune responses it has triggered are all complete. If you can get through 3 months after vaccination and you haven't had any side effects whatsoever, you're not going to now have a side effect.
Right. As opposed to long COVID and the damage to your vascular system, to your organs, right? So that is what you're weighing it against. And again, like, I know that people can have horrific responses to vaccines. That actually, hits my family really personally. But medically and scientifically, it cannot be on an anecdotal basis. That's not how science happens. It has to be a general consensus, repeated, verifiable data.
Exactly. So this is where we come to sudden deaths, which is now the hot topic. Sudden death, like everyone's dropping dead because of the vaccines. And so here's our Dr. Malone saying, well, I think it's a mixture of both. It's the vax and COVID, right? It's both. But they've done studies on this, and the studies show that a fraction of people who die are among the vaccinated. A fraction of the risk of myocarditis among unvaccinated people who catch COVID. So basically, if you do some actual math, it's clear that you can't correlate the shot with it versus the risk of actually COVID.
Right.
Let's think about this. Something that fakes a response by your body to COVID, which is what vaccines do. They trigger your body to think you had COVID, and there's a response, and it reacts, and it's over at most in 2 months, and your body has primed itself to if it sees that again, it reacts and responds and kicks it out of the body.
Right.
So is that causing people to drop suddenly, or is it the actual COVID that we know causes all these vascular problems?
Right, exactly. And again, and we talked about this last week a bit, but because of the Biden administration and the CDC's reluctance to talk about long COVID and insistence that COVID is mild, and as long as you're vaccinated, you're going to be fine. And they don't talk about, getting infected, getting reinfected, and how that correlates to vascular issues, myocarditis, heart attacks, strokes. They have left a huge vacuum for these conspiracies. So when in the absence of somebody saying, listen, if you get COVID even once, even if it's a mild case, even if you're vaccinated, you have, I think like twice, like the percentage keeps going up geometrically each time you get infected, of how your body may have different vascular issues, diabetes, stroke. But because they don't want to talk about that, because they send everybody back to work, because, it's mild, you have their only barometer now is death. And the rates of people who are vaccinated who are dying are much lower than people who are unvaccinated who are dying, even if the numbers sometimes are higher, but the rates are lower. Because they are sticking to that, they are leaving this enormous vacuum. And so this, died suddenly hashtag and people who glom onto it, and everybody who, and there are quite a few young people now who are dying suddenly, but they're going to tack it to, oh, well, was she vaxxed? Was he vaxxed? And not, did he have COVID? Did she have COVID? And we know that you can't even get a life insurance policy if you are within 60 days of recovering from COVID. So, the people with the money who don't want to lose their money, they know the truth of it. They refuse to insure you if you have had COVID recently.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have anybody who on the left questions the science and then critically looks at the answers to that. So they don't,
right.
Sure, let's take a look at what this Malone guy has to say. Okay, let's see what people have to say back to him.
Right.
When you do that, you have an actual scientific response. You can look at, and I keep saying this, but you have to separate out what the administration is pushing and what the big pharma is pushing versus what doctors are saying.
Right.
The medical community is telling you this is all fucking critical. You got specialists in every field of medicine saying, holy shit, we've never seen something like COVID before affect our area of specialty.
Right.
Over and over again. So to take this guy who's lying clearly that he invented this vaccine.
Yeah.
Selling books,
does feel a lot like
tons of money.
Denialists. Yeah.
It's the same thing. And so where did this guy come to fame? I mean, the quotes that were in that article that I poorly shared, but those were all from the truckers rally because he was promoted by the Koch brothers. That's how the Koch brothers elevated this guy to be their number one. So he could be front and center because they could tag him with this, I invented the vaccine bullshit.
Right.
And I'm telling you it's dangerous.
Of truth. Yeah.
And so the guy telling you it's dangerous took the fucking vaccine twice.
Right. Yeah.
So no. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. And, I do know that there are some concerns with young men with the mRNA vaccine, especially I think with Pfizer, which is a bigger dose than Moderna, or it might be reversed. So don't anybody take my word for it. Like, do your own research. But like, I do think that some of that can be discussed, and I wish that there was more trust. And I mean, again, I think that this is, every time that they try to shut down or cancel somebody who's questioning the facts or who's saying something that at all casts doubt on the vaccines, the response to it shouldn't be to silence that. It should be to use that as an opportunity to defend your position, to explain the science, and also to say, like, maybe you do hold off if you are, on getting your 5th booster, if you are an 18 to 40-year-old man. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I do think that there's room for these discussions, and maybe even that's wrong. But like, once it's shut down and everything becomes black and white, that's where I feel like these conspiracy theories really thrive.
They do. And you should be able to discuss all of this. And that's what we need. What we're not seeing on the left is discussion of this. We're seeing popular shows on the left ignore COVID because it's a divisive issue, because a lot of people on the left have bought into all this anti-vax bullshit.
Yep.
And so
minimizing,
and the people that are discussing it, well, a lot of them have decided, well, their audience is
over it.
You can grab an audience. If I came out as an anti-vaxxer right now and start putting out videos, we would get a lot more viewers. Like, we're not making $1 from the show, but if we wanted to, like, that's a pathway to do it. And at best, avoiding this topic entirely is the best way to go if you're in this for the money.
Yeah.
Because you're going to turn off viewers. But you can also get leftists and rightists to kind of agree on, this is what the Koch brothers fucking wanted when they had the trucker rally. This is what they were pushing for. And it happened exactly according to plan.
Yeah. I mean, the Great Barrington Declaration is now basically like the law of the land. And it was, derided when Trump espoused it, when he said, like, let it rip. It's just like the flu. And then Biden came in and did the same thing. And that's basically, everybody's like, you're just going to get it. Resign yourself. Here comes my Bobby Knight joke. You're just going to get it. Why, what do they call it? Covidians and, branch Covidians. Anybody who still wants to mask is like so attached to the virus. Get over it. What's your problem? And
that's exactly why none of these people will ever address long COVID. They will never show any of the science on that, which even all these shows on TV have finally had to admit are real. They won't cover it, but CNN will have articles about how long COVID is real and here's the risk factor and this and that and the other, but you won't see it on mainstream TV. Yeah. Because the second you admit that letting it rip doesn't work, because if you let it rip, you're going to get it twice, you're going to get it 3 times, and that's going to elevate your risk of a heart attack 5 times. Kids are dying. You can't have that discussion, because if you have that discussion, it makes people go, oh shit, maybe this isn't the right way.
Yeah. And maybe we shouldn't go back to work. Maybe we should get paid sick leave. Maybe we should have Medicare for all. Right.
Yeah. And a big part of why the Koch brothers want to ignore this is they get rich off fucking gas and oil. Like, if you're not driving to work, they want you to drive to work and die, because at least you're driving your car, which puts money in their pockets.
Right. All right. I think we spin the wheel.
I'm still salty.
F Dr.
Yeah,
Malone.
baby.
I forgot to take off profile grip.
All right. That's good.
Shot is perfect.
I will take this shot. I think we need some good cheer.
Yeah. I'm not ready to profile another grifter. And honestly, I did a bad job at profiling him. But
no, you didn't. I mean, I think part of the problem is that you gotta take each claim they make and kind of try to combat it, and it's difficult because, sorry, I know you're not a normie, but we're not medical experts, so some of the stuff we're discussing is way above our pay grade. Cheers.
Yeah, but all the basic claims are nonsense. Like, he's another one pushing against the mask.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's really fascinating that anybody who is anti-vax, it also seems to be just anti any protection at all. I would have a lot more ability to have a conversation if it weren't just basically, sucking the balls of big corporate CEOs, and everybody seems to be on the same page of that. Just get back to work and live your life.
Yeah, because there's no scientific, you can't make the argument that COVID isn't real. So you can't do that.
They kind of do now, though.
The whole world, I mean, we got millions of deaths across the world. There's no conspiracy between every fucking government in the world to fake this disease.
I'm about to show you something from Leanna Wen, though. I'll let you know. She's calling it kind of a conspiracy.
But you would also need every doctor in the world, except for this Robert Malone, and there's 10 of them. There's 10 quacks on the left that are the only 10 that get what's going on in this world.
Right.
But if they really care, if it's all about their issue, if the vaccine is unsafe, for example, you would be pushing for masks. You would still recognize that it's a problem.
Right.
The vaccine's an issue, but masks still work, and we should be getting air ventilation instead. These are issues we can push instead of the vaccine. But you don't get any of that. You get all nonsense because nonsense sells his fucking book.
Yeah. And as you said, just the way Bill Clinton was helped along by the Koch brothers, that is a bipartisan effort to serve capital and get everyone back to work. It is not about protecting you. So it's to sow discord, make it chaotic, and make people distrustful of the government, and but also at the same time get yourself back to work. Freedom. You're free to work. Freedom.
Yep. And I mean, if capitalism was, sorry, let's just move on. But if capitalists were smart, they would have embraced the mass as a way to still do all the things normally. But I mean, we got 100%. In this weird position where Biden needs to say that COVID is over. He needs to own that, and politically, he did better, and people need to feel normal, which was all part of the Koch brothers' plan. This all is schemed up to get people back to work, but they
won. It's over. They won.
In the long term, capitalism is still going to be kind of fucked in this situation. I mean,
well, I mean, I do think
handful of people are going to benefit from it, but we're really looking at that handful as COVID goes on, the handful is smaller and smaller. We're going to get more to moats, and
I think that's where it's really headed. Those billionaire bunkers are absolutely, I think they know, because they orchestrated it, that climate change is real. They know that they're destroying the planet, and they just want to, grab all the resources on their way down to their bunkers, and to hell with the rest of us. Because the truth is, you're right. As people continue to be sick, we're losing, I think, how many millions? Yeah.
Well, you're seeing a lot of economic articles come out first saying, holy shit, where's
the workforce
on the horizon because of COVID with the workforce. But that doesn't hit political discourse yet. It hasn't. But
it doesn't. And the other thing is, because we don't really manufacture anything here, they're not as concerned if we're not buying their goods, right? Because they're just doing stock buybacks and stuff. So it doesn't even matter that you're killing people or starving them or not giving them wages so they don't have money to put back into the economy, because that's not really how these people make their money. It's all one big Ponzi scheme of, Wall Street, the spec market anyway, right? So they have set up a system where they don't have to actually create anything, and they don't have to worry about people buying their products.
Yep.
Dave, I don't know what they plan to do in their bunkers 24/7. There was actually a really good interview, and I can't remember his name, but I want to read the book about billionaire bunkers. David Sirota had him on The Lever about, 2 months ago. And it was a great interview, but they have really no plan for that, because they're going to need somebody to work for them in those bunkers, and the people they're going to find to work for them are going to despise them. So it's going to be a really interesting let them fight situation.
If I'm, please hire me, because if I'm going to be king of the castle so quickly. I'm sorry, bunker guy.
Yeah,
you're not living long.
Yeah.
But
that's why they're financing the police force, right? I mean, it's like all of this stuff is all working in concert together to create this hellscape that we're all in right now. All right, let's spin the wheel. We got to get to
baby.
There we go. There we go. The ruckus we were promised by the squad. Do we get to still call them the squad anymore? What does the squad do?
I hear the squat. What else do they call them? I don't know. Somebody tell me.
Well, okay.
I mostly ignore.
There are a couple of different things that happened recently. Obviously, there was the Hakeem Jeffries, not Hakeem Jeffries, the Speaker of the House with McCarthy. And the glee with which, obviously like regular corporate Democrats looked on, but it was really, again, incredibly instructive to see members of the squad not only mock the political infighting on the Republican side, which I loved, not from some schadenfreude, but because I wish we had a Tea Party of the left actually fighting for something, or Freedom Caucus or whatever the hell. But also all the members of the squad lining up enthusiastically to show their support for Hakeem Jeffries, who started a super PAC to
crush progressives.
To crush them. So what kind of ruckus is that? So
I mean, and these guys are all born. I mean, Jeffries, he rose to power because you can't become speaker unless you're like one of the most evil people. Like, let's just put that out there. You're not going to get to the top of corporate owned parties unless you have no morals. You're replacing Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
So, I mean, most people know this, but he, during Bernie's campaign, he went around the TV on the networks saying Bernie was wholly beholden to the NRA, which was an absolutely fabricated lie.
Total lie.
But he got a lot of airtime, popularity from that. And, who does that? The most evil guy. So all the squad should know that. That was fresh on their minds from, if they're having any meetings talking about things, if they're actually scheming anything, if they ever have any discussions, which we hear from the squad themselves, they don't even they don't have strategy.
A voting block. They don't decide. No, they don't leverage their power.
Block.
No. I mean, basically, they were called the squad by Nancy Pelosi, and then they glommed onto it and became like a marketing campaign to go, on the cover of Vanity Fair or whatever. So, okay, so here is AOC. Well, do we even need to show that? Who cares? She basically just said, we've got lots of stuff going on and we're 100% united with Jeffries. So that's gross, appalling, and completely betrays any, insistence that they might have that they're fighting for us or doing anything that they said they were going to do. They haven't gotten anything that they said they were going to fight for. They haven't shown us how they're fighting for us. They have caved on every important vote. So that's one part of it. The other part, and this I thought was sort of interesting, is California politics, but we all know, and it's been, written about quite extensively, that Dianne Feinstein is in fairly advanced stages of Alzheimer's. Yeah, she forgets conversations she has. She takes medicines, which I think a lot of people actually in Congress are taking Alzheimer medicine. But she, I think, has filed paperwork to run again in 24. She has not said she's not going to run. She's 89 years old and she has Alzheimer's. Katie Porter last week announced that she is running for Dianne Feinstein's seat, which I have lots of issues with Katie Porter because she was a Warren person and I find that reprehensible, but she has some good moments. And I thought that was pretty great. Well, the corporate media is not having it. Yeah. They are upset. So here is MSNBC's response.
In Washington, California Congresswoman Katie Porter is getting a little bit of flack from some members of her own party after the progressive lawmaker announced today she wants to run for Senate in 2024. Porter's potential rivals are taking aim at the timing of her announcement. A source close to Adam Schiff calls it an incredible mistake for her to launch a campaign right now, adding, and I'm quoting here, that we are not going to announce in the middle of a natural disaster and are surprised that others would do so. Another Democrat, Ro Khanna, telling NBC he's also focused on the historic weather conditions back home. Here's another reason why this announcement is so notable. It's because the senior Democrat in California, Dianne Feinstein, has said she hasn't made a decision yet about what she's going to do for 2024. She certainly has not announced that she's going to clear the way for somebody else to take her position, telling NBC Today she's going to make an announcement at the appropriate time. I want to bring in now NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray, who is joining us now. And Mark, Porter's communications director tweeted today that the Congresswoman raised something like $250,000 in just 90 minutes after this announcement, right? That puts her on pace for numbers that her campaign, really, her office hasn't seen before, right? It is a bold move by the Congresswoman here to announce now.
So that is the tack they're all taking, which is really interesting. There was also this on Joy-Ann Reid talking to Governor Newsom, who said that if Dianne Feinstein retired before the end of her term, Newsom would be able to appoint a Black woman to finish off the term. So if Katie Porter plans to run, she'd be challenging what would be the only Black woman senator. So they're already going to charge her with racism. They're going to, because she is borderline progressive, they're going to give her the Bernie treatment and a little bit of the Warren treatment.
Right.
This was The View. Also, I think interesting.
Now, the seat she's running for is currently occupied by Dianne Feinstein, the oldest sitting senator at 89. And it's widely speculated that Feinstein will not be seeking another term. But since she hasn't actually made that official yet, some people are saying that Porter is making a disrespectful move by not waiting. What do you think?
Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised, though, because I think what we saw when we saw the Democrats during that House chaotic moment when they were trying to pick speakers was this unity. Yeah. And I think that unity came from the fact that Hakeem Jeffries waited his turn and waited for Nancy Pelosi to sort of bless him and say, yes, I'm going to step down. You may step up. And I think she kind of earned that right. And so Dianne Feinstein, she has been a lion of the Senate. And for her, even at 90, I don't know, she's put in her papers for 2024 basically saying, I'm going to run again. And so there's some tension there. And I'm surprised Katie Porter wouldn't get her blessing first.
It's hard to see clearly for me because I think Katie Porter is such a force.
Amazing.
And normally I wouldn't concern myself. I'm not a political person with California, but I learned of Katie Porter in one of the many whiteboard presentations and was like, that woman is fascinating. Yeah. So it's, again, I tend to give her more credit that there could be more to this. She could have talked privately. There could have been some advisors or people that know. In theory, that sounds lovely, Sunny, but getting her blood in the Senate to me was like, it's a bit Machiavellian, but I'm like, just go, girl, go.
I mean, Adam Schiff is also someone that people are talking about sort of taking that place. I'd love to see an Adam Schiff, but only if Dianne is truly ready to step down.
Isn't Adam Schiff getting a lot of flack from the right now about different, they're calling him all different?
I feel like
he's hiring
he
campaign
deserves it,
staff,
but he's
though.
kind of radioactive a little bit.
I feel like it makes it even better.
I mean, these people hate democracy. Wait your turn, get your blessing. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's like they're just condoning the monarchy in England, or something.
100%.
Like we're forced, hey, the Democratic Party doesn't want him, and they're just openly talking about this. Like, you gotta kiss at your ass up the food chain to the top to even run for the seat because she's so great. They don't talk about anything she's done. It's just
she's a lion of the Senate. Why? Number one. And also, I mean,
and why don't they talk about her fucking dementia? I mean,
no mention of that.
I mean,
maybe she's not ready. Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, not ready. They don't care about the politics. They don't actually care about any policies. They don't care if your people in Congress are representing you at all. It is completely just a game to them. The idea that you have to have So I never watched The View, but that popped up, and it popped up for me a few days after the whole timeline of Biden's documents being found, his own version of Mar-a-Lago next to his Porsche or whatever the hell he has locked up. And it was like this slow leak, but I mean, they initially found them and told the Department of Justice in November before the midterms. That wasn't announced until sometime in December. By that point, Merrick Garland had already announced a special counsel to investigate Trump's documents. even though he knew at that point that Biden also had classified documents. And, the covering for that, like there's been almost no talk about it on liberal media about Biden. And if it is, it's why it's different, how they have actually really tried to, they haven't tried to do any obstruction of justice
from the start.
Right. Yeah.
But they didn't advertise any of this when asked about it at the White House, what's her name? The speaker at the White House.
Yeah. Jean Pierre. Yeah. They make it seem like it's a totally different thing. And what it really comes down to is, and I mean, here, I'm sorry to play her again, but I think it's such a mindset into such a glimpse into liberals' minds is they're just going to decide your intention and you're on the right team. So this is Joy Behar. Forgive me, but I'm going to show her one more time.
I think that what you just said is right, that there are differences in what happened.
Yes, but the optics are not good.
Well, we all know that Trump is a liar and a thief. We know that. So it's not that big a jump to say that he obstructed and he lied. We don't think that Biden is a liar and a thief, so we give him the benefit of the doubt. That's partly what's going on. But what I think also is going on, no matter what the truth of it is, Whoopi, they will spin it, Bubblehead and Marjorie Taylor and that crowd, Matt Gaetz. You think they're not going to spin this, that it's just as bad as Trump? And so the lie gets out there, people believe it, just like that Donaldson person, whatever his name is.
Byron.
What's his name?
Byron
Donalds. I saw him also. He was at the fight on the floor, too, wasn't he?
He was nominated for speaker a number of times.
By two people.
Yeah. He's the new darling.
In one of the 15 rounds.
But I mean, what I'm just saying is that the lying has been so invasive, so ubiquitous, that no one will believe the truth anymore. And that you can put that at the feet of Donald Trump, who started the lying.
So
Donald Trump started the lying. I mean, it's like they have absolutely no self-awareness. Donald Trump was the first liar in chief.
So if you're on the right, which I am not, but if you're on the right, there are so many lies that Biden has told publicly throughout his career that you're completely ignoring. I mean, he met with Nelson Mandela, a drunk driver killed his wife, his kid died of died in the Iraq War. I mean, you can go on and on and on with all the lies Biden has told. He marched for civil rights. None of that shit is true. Like, he was top of his class in college.
He's like pathological liar. He had to drop out.
He never wanted. Yeah, he never wanted to cut Social Security. He literally lied in his college. He had a college plagiarized in college. I mean, the right knows what a liar he is. So, like, when you have these liberals on TV not being honest about this stuff. Like anyone on the right is going to watch that show and go, well, you're ignoring all this obvious stuff. Right. It's so partisan, clearly. Like, just address what happened, compare it to how the other side was treated, and be honest. Don't say, well, but I like him. He's a good guy. He never lies. Like,
it's the same thing they do with every single Trump policy that they hated when Trump did it. But then when Biden says, take your mask off and let it rip, when Biden deports more people, when Biden gives more money to cops or to war, Biden has migrants in cages. It's, he's trying, it's different. How's he supposed to, like, it's so pathetic. Anyway, that's where we are.
Which is why the Democrats hated having both chambers. And now they can settle into, it's not our fault. We're trying. Right. But when you tried before and you had all levers of power, it's a weak excuse, which is why Manchin, we don't hear anymore about Manchin and Sinema. Well, Sinema's gone. Like, we don't, the new villains don't even matter yet, because now they're just, the Republicans are the villains, and they're hoping that gets them through 2024, but it's not going to. Newsflash.
All right. Yes, it is being back in high school. It's so sick. I'm reading all your comments. Thank you. I just haven't done too much. Okay. I think I can do it. One more, at least.
Sorry, I've been ignoring the comments.
Well, I know I'm trying to read them, and then I realize I'm not totally focused on what you're saying, and then my eyes start crossing. So we need a producer. We need somebody to help us in the chat.
Staff.
We need to unionize. Cheers.
Cheers. We do need a union.
Yeah.
That'd be hilarious. Hilarious.
Yeah. Really good.
Lila, I want more showtime.
I would like for you not to cover my face with your graphics.
Well, talk to the graphic guy.
All right, spin it.
Yeah, baby.
That was my bad.
You're fired. Your contract is not renewed. You're supposed to remove that.
Rules say I cannot be fired. I can only be demoted to wheel spinner.
Yeah, baby.
Well, this hits home. This is kind of a fun one.
I mean, a little bit, because I love bringing up Peter Douche stuff.
Let's get to your part of the Twitter files. Our very own Pat Cody found a place in the Twitter files. I'm removing the wheel.
Should we put show the video? Because
let's see.
Lila just pointed this out today. I had no idea that I made Fox News.
Look at this.
That was Matt Taibbi speaking with Maria yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures, one of the few journalists asked by Elon Musk to go through the Twitter files and reveal them. The latest batch of these Twitter files shows that California Congressman Adam Schiff and his whole office at it again. This time exposing how his staff repeatedly asked Twitter, quite often, to take down tweets, including the image of then presidential candidate Joe Biden. It's a joke.
I love that.
So that was from your Peter Douche account back when Peter Dow was on the...
I mean, there's so many weird things to this story, but like they blocked out douche. Like you can't say douche on Fox News. Like, oh no, don't say douche. Don't say Peter Douche. But I mean, the whole thing started. I don't know if people know the backstory. I'm going to give it real quick. I made a GIF of Joe Biden swirling his tongue around. So make these GIF versus GIF is a whole show. That's a whole show. So I made this stupid thing and I came up with like one or two dumb jokes and put it on Twitter, and they weren't even good. And that was one of them. And it got shared by Trump, which is why this became a story. And so Adam Schiff himself tried to get this shit banned from Twitter.
There will be no humor.
This stupid fucking GIF.
Because it was a deep fake, and somebody might think that really he was a venomous snake or something with his tongue swirling around. I mean, so ridiculous. And think about that's where he's spending his time. Adam Schiff is contacting the higher ups at Twitter to get a parody account taken off.
And when that didn't work, they had David from the Atlantic write a story saying that this was the first use of deep fakes from a presidential candidate to affect an election. When they write that story, they don't show the stupid image, because if you show the image, it all falls apart.
Right.
It's all completely ridiculous because the image was not a deep fake. A deep fake is supposed to be like, oh, here's Biden like grabbing a child by, some inappropriate part or something. Like that's a deep
making
fake.
It real, making it
fabricated video.
Yeah.
People think it's real. A deep fake is not some silly thing with a tongue that's like twice as long as any real tongue swirling around. And here's Adam Schiff and his staff debating with Twitter. And kudos to Twitter on this one instance. They did at least say, no, this doesn't violate our policy. But it does take me back to Peter Douche, who was kicked off of Twitter. This was actually not Peter Douche, which is funny that they all connect it to Peter Douche because it's not even Peter Douche.
Yeah, that is funny.
It was it's still an active account. I don't even, the fuck was it?
It was another one of your comedy ones.
Who's the political guy? Obviously political guy. Nate Silver. It was Nate Silver. Yeah. Long past Peter Douche. I don't know why they connected to Peter
that's
Douche.
funny that they did that. Well, the best part of it was when Trump retweeted you quickly changed that handle to Trump and Biden are rapey. Right?
Which was, and then all these, but they don't, none of the news, all the news story, like CNN reported on this, MSNBC reported on it. All of them covered this story without showing any of the actual images. This is the first time I've seen the image on TV,
yeah. That's funny.
Which I appreciate. But imagine if you're watching this show if you follow this on Twitter and you're a right-leaning person, and you know that this is just a silly, stupid thing,
right.
and like here you have Adam Schiff trying to shut this down. You have Donald Trump tweeting it. You know it's ridiculous. It's funny to you because it's mocking Biden. But then all the major news sources come out and say, this is a deep fake use of trying to fake the president. It's a it's a hazard to our Constitution. Does that make you more inclined to be against Democrats and against the media, or support these people saying it was a dangerous use of deep fakes?
Yeah. I mean, it's just really so sad to see how little Democrats believe in democracy or free speech. I mean, they have lost any credibility as, being defenders of those sort of basic rights that that I hold really dear. It's really unfortunate. The other thing that did come out, a little more important, but not as funny.
No, mine was the most important reveal. Twitter files.
Li Fong did a sort of deep dive into big pharma's, trying to put its finger on the scale at Twitter. COVID-19 drug makers pressured Twitter to censor activists pushing for generic vaccine. So, again, if you're going to have a vaccine-only approach, and then not release the patent because Bill Gates is such a monster that he can't part with a penny of his billions of dollars, or is worried about intellectual property, they wanted to shut that down. The pharmaceutical industry, lobbied social media to shape content around vaccine policy. The push included direct pressure from Pfizer partner BioNTech to censor activists demanding low-cost generic vaccines for low-income countries. Notably, this massive push to censor and label COVID misinformation never applied to drug companies. When Big Pharma wildly exaggerated the risks of creating low-cost generic COVID vaccines, Stronger did nothing. The rules only applied to critics of industry because Big Pharma said that in the poorer countries, they didn't have the facilities or ability to use the recipe to create the vaccine, and that would be dangerous, which is a total lie. But that, of course, wasn't shut down. And then, the other thing that I thought was interesting, and I think they wrote it pretty well here, is that this was all happening at a time when online activism was the only form of protest available to many, and they try to silence legitimate criticism, right? I mean, at the beginning of COVID, when we were all supposed to isolate and quarantine, Twitter was, and it still remains, the social square, the community where people can, where a random person like me can say something against the people in power and be heard by my small corner, and where activists can try to organize and spread real information or gin up activism towards something really important, like releasing the patent. And that's how they used their leverage instead.
And like you said, I mean, you have to consider that everyone was online for the first time. Like a lot of people were online for the first time, excuse me. They were engaged because they were forced to be at home. People weren't going to work. So Twitter had the potential to be the main source of like, hey, what's the daily on COVID?
Right.
And so that's why they had to shut it down. They had to promote Koch brothers bullshit, which was anti-mask, and they had to shut down logical things like releasing the patents to end this. They push this whole the vaccine is the only solution nonsense. And then if that's the only solution, if you got people to believe that, then you can't share information about them not releasing that patent, because then they're what are these people fucking doing?
Right. If the vaccine is going to save us from this, then we need to get shots into arms across the whole world, not just into the wealthy white countries. Yeah. All right. That's the Twitter files. Let's go. Spin it. We got COVID. That's our last thing. And timeline cleanse.
Yeah, baby.
Well, this is our COVID section of the wheel this week. Manufacturing consent, because every week they bring out a new line that they're gonna wave. Oh my God, my map disappeared. Look at that. We went in and out of the studio so much all day. My
map?
COVID map. Well, that's different. I mean, that's the map of kids in the country. But yeah, I don't know where my thing went. All right. I mean, this is just horrible, but as of October 22nd, 96% of children had been infected by SARS-2. When Biden took office, this number was roughly 20%. In less than 2 years, the administration and CDC will have managed to implement a pandemic policy that resulted in nearly 80% of children infected with SARS. This is, somebody said, oh, our insurance company is going to save the day, which haha, no, definitely not. But because they are number crunchers, and because their bottom line is, making money and denying people who would cost them money, insurance people are saying mild Omicron is causing the highest death rates amongst working age people ever seen in the history of insurance. So there goes that whole mild, line that was started. I don't know if that was, what was that, Monica Gupta or whoever it was, but I mean, there was a whole list of people over 2021, ever since Biden got into office, 2021, 2022, who just started, talking about, well, now that we have the vaccines, you can rip that mask off. And that was, again, that was Biden working with Republicans and the Koch brothers to take away any stigma. We had Rochelle Walensky calling the mask the scarlet letter, in spite of the fact, and this is how the tail was wagging the dog, a majority of the country in every state was in favor of mask mandates when there were spikes in COVID. And so how did they deal with that? They changed the transmission map from, hospital intake to hospital intake from COVID community transmission, right, because that would precipitate mask mandates across the country. Even now, and my map is gone, but it still is a bright red map on the old map, but pastel green on the new one.
If people realized there was a threat to COVID in their community, they would mask. They would support mask mandates even.
Yeah. Yep.
But and that's how ignorant by design the public has become regarding COVID.
Right.
So I want to just call out all the leftists again who are not covering this.
Yep.
What the fuck are you doing? You are playing into the Koch brothers' hands.
You really are. And, you look at, again, like, what are the wealthiest people in the world doing? Well, they're at Davos now, and they have the World Economic Forum is forcing everybody, including journalists and participants, to take a PCR test upon arrival. If you don't take a test, the chip in your ID badge is deactivated. And if you test positive, the badge is also deactivated. Here's a great account, Turn, who writes about, all things COVID. And he says, what do you see in this picture? This is at Davos, the billionaires. You see a filter down on the bottom left, and you also see the person wearing a parka indoors. And so from that, he infers that windows are open. So they are cleaning the air and they are ventilating because they know COVID's not over. They're taking a PCR test. And I mean, they're not wearing masks, which is I think a crazy risk, but they're cleaning the air. They are ventilating. They're doing PCR tests. So they do not think this is over in any way.
But they still want to present the image that it's over.
Well, you got to get everybody back to work.
Yeah, you got to work because it's the economic forum. That's the whole deal.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the pieces of shit in our government who have promoted a lot of this nonsense, starting with my favorites.
Yeah. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, who I don't know if you've noticed, but recently he's all about vibes. He's like, I've seen a couple of his tweets and it's just like, what's the most special thing you did over the holiday or whatever?
Show me your cat.
You're the Surgeon General. But he's been leading periodic off-the-record discussions that include a few dozen physicians, academics, and other well-known COVID-19 commentators with large Twitter followings, like Baltimore's former health commissioner and CNN analyst Leanna Wen, Baylor University virologist Peter Hotez, and New York University epidemiologist Celine Gounder, according to several people familiar with the call. So they are given instructions of what to put out there on Twitter.
Yeah, it's just like when all the social media people on the remember that picture at the White House with all the leftists meeting with Biden, or the
leftists, liberals
but,
getting their talking points. It was like the Brooklyn Dad person.
Yeah, Brooklyn Dad and all the
Mueller, she wrote. Yeah, I mean, they were all paid propagandists. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, this was following up. We're missing the
I know something happened. StreamYard, what are you doing to us? A couple of our graphics are missing. So basically what they're saying is, they're told what to do.
Story, I'm sorry,
no, go ahead.
So this story in the Washington Post is where Leana Wen presents this argument that, and this is the interesting thing, is the article doesn't even have her saying that deaths are overcounted. It's just a headline. What she is admitting to in the article is that hospitals are over-reporting COVID cases because someone comes in with a broken leg and they have a COVID case. But she makes nowhere in the article at all is there anything about overcounting deaths. It's a total
manufactured headline.
It's completely nonsense.
And then you get the anti-vaxxers who are like, well, look at that. See, we were right all along. The truth is finally coming out.
Right. But because of this headline alone, which is supported by all the terrible people who are pushing the anti-COVID minimization stuff, like Leana Wen, it gets played out and spread to people. And they use this article as an excuse to say, well, the public doesn't want it. Look, there's that article out there. And, people on the left.
Well, and also, again, like, you can only, you can only keep denying the reality so long. And when there are millions of deaths worldwide, but you keep wanting to insist that COVID is over, the way, like, what do? So now you say, oh, well, it's not deaths from COVID, it's deaths with COVID. It's like, what's the definition of is, right? And so they've made this, I mean, there was somebody else who also, like, people keep posting that article saying, you see, it's really just the flu. It's not such a big deal anymore. And that is once again how the liberals and the Republicans get together to manufacture consent and tell everybody that this is, to minimize this global pandemic that we are still very much suffering through.
That's the whole game. And it's Leana Wen is one of the worst of all these people. Because she lobbied all these personal stories about her decision to send her kids to school. And it was all based on, her kids at her school had air filtration systems and all this stuff. She doesn't release any of that information. She's just like, I'm
learning loss. They have to get back to school. Yeah.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they all got COVID, right?
And meanwhile, they all got COVID. But meanwhile, I mean, we know that, like, all those things, they were lies. Like, I mean, there is some learning loss, don't get me wrong, but they push this narrative about kids and suicide, and that pulls on heartstrings for parents. Oh my God, if I don't get my kid in school, he's going to kill himself. And suicides for kids actually went down when we were isolating at home. So that was nonsense. But it's that headline they get to spin over and over again. That headline is all, if you're not inquisitive, you're not even going to read the article, and you're not going to break down that even Leana Wen isn't saying all that shit that they put in the headline.
Yeah.
But it's enough that all these people they just repeat it over and over again. And it makes it up the food chain from either the Atlantic or the Washington Post or the New York Times. And then you get some other person that's already pushing these same narrative to just casually bring that up on MSNBC because he's a pundit on MSNBC, because he's going to push the same thing. And he's going to refer to this article that he read, and that this is how the public thinks on this now.
It's really, it's pretty bleak because there is no plan, and there could be a plan, right? Like, cleaning the air is the way to get out of this. It's not vaccinating. I mean, yes, vaccinating, masking, isolating, testing, quarantine, all of that, super important. But to actually end the pandemic, we do all of those things to flatten the curve while we filter the air, clean the air. Are you leaving?
I'm getting a beer. This is important stuff. This is important.
Okay. I was like, wait, it's 6:30. He's out, hard out, done. I know we have to go anyway, but you know, they're not going to talk about that. They're not going to invest in that. I mean, we're 3 years in now. We could have actually really had an enormous overhaul of our infrastructure.
And the truly undebatable science, if you talk to scientists, is that masks fucking help, cleaning the air fucking works. Those two things, no matter what you say, yeah, maybe they don't get us out of the pandemic, but they slow the spread of this. And if you slow the spread of this, vaccines have a chance to actually stop the spread themselves. But we're so far behind because we're always chasing, because there are new mutations all the time, because nobody's taking any precautions, and we have this mutation fucking factory.
Yeah, that's what we are right now. We are gerbils in a mutation experiment right now.
Just slow it down a little bit, and maybe we have something that'll help. Maybe the treatments won't be, maybe monoclonal
right now they're not even
antibodies
effective.
Will work. And half these treatments that people are told work. Sorry, YouTube censors. If you're listening, half is. It's not actually half. I don't know the number. Whatever you're going to use to kick us off of Twitter or YouTube,
but basically,
a lot of these precautions a lot of these treatments aren't working as
they're not working on these new variants, right?
And that's not being told to the public. They're not coming out and saying, well, sorry for kids.
Use the tools. Do your own research and use your tools.
Yeah. Sorry, Paxlovid doesn't work for some of you. Sorry, you can't get some of these antibodies.
Treatments. You can't. A lot of people can't even get them when they, you can't even get the tools that they tell you are available to you. I think we should end on a timeline cleanse.
Do we have a positive one?
Well,
we do.
We have two. We have Rutger Bregman on Tucker Carlson. Like, I know a lot of people have been talking about his great presentation when he went to Davos a few years ago, and in front of all these disgusting billionaires, called them out on why aren't we talking about the one thing we should be talking about, which is taxing all of you. It's like we're in a fire and you're talking about everything except bringing a hose to put out the fire. You all are the reason that the world is in dire straits right now. So he calls them out to their face. It's fantastic. Tucker Carlson, the pretend populist, has him on to talk about it. And here is this amazing man talking to Tucker Carlson.
So I think the issue really is one of corruption and of people being bribed and of not being, not talking about the real issues. What the family, what the Murdochs basically want you to do is to scapegoat immigrants instead of talking about tax avoidance. So I'm glad you're now finally raising the issue, but that's what's been happening for the past couple of years.
And I'm taking orders from the Murdochs. Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, it doesn't work that directly. But I mean, you've been part of the Cato Institute, right? You've been a senior fellow there for years. You've been taking their dirty money. They're funded by cock billionaires,
Wait, why don't you tell me how it does work?
Well, it works by you taking their dirty money. It's as easy as that. I mean, you are a millionaire funded by billionaires. That's what you are. And I'm glad you now finally jumped the bandwagon, of people like Bernie Sanders and AOC. But you're not part of the solution, Mr. Carlson. You're part of the problem, actually.
AOC, wait, but can I just say,
it's true, right? It's true, right? That all the anchors on Fox, they're all millionaires. How is this possible? Well, it's very easy. You're just not talking about certain things.
Fox doesn't even play where you are.
It doesn't play where you are? Well, have you heard of the internet? I can watch things whatever I want, I have, actually. I can't say I'm a great fan of your show, but I do my homework when you invite me on your show. So, I mean, you're probably not going to air this, but I went to Davos to speak truth to power, and I'm doing exactly the same thing right now. You might not like it, But you're a millionaire funded by billionaires, and that's the reason why you're not talking about these issues.
But I am talking about these issues.
Yeah, only now. Come on, you jumped the bandwagon. You're all like, oh, I'm against the globalist elite, blah, blah, blah. It's not very convincing, to be honest.
Why don't you go yourself, you tiny brain, and I hope this gets picked up, because you're a moron. I tried to give you a hearing, but you were too annoying for me.
You can't handle the criticism, can you?
You were too fucking annoying.
I love it. I love it. Nobody ever talks to him like that. You go on there. I mean, of course, he'll never be invited back, but I kind of love it. All right. Wait, my friends, we have to show the cops.
I feel like we should end on one more timeline cleanse.
I agree. I agree. This is a good one. We need Benny Hill music.
Better again. More good.
Just to set it up, this is, I think it's in Germany, and it's environmentalists who are protesting outside of a coal mine. And of course, the cops are there to protect the coal mine CEO's investment. Here's how it pans out. Too bad that riot gear doesn't come with some mud protection, huh?
I mean, it looks like this is some like sci-fi quicksand or something. It's fucking mud.
Meanwhile, the protesters are just dressed normally, and they're all in their crazy gear, and they can't get out of the mud.
Oh, ouch. The monk wins. The monk wins.
Anyway, it's like Keystone Cops. I just thought that was pretty funny. Yeah. I don't know. What hope is there? The mud gods better come save us all.
So we got strikes, we got protests, we got riots, we got
the god of mud.
If you're a worker in a bunker,
yeah,
do your part.
Poison the soup, a very special sauce for your billionaire
I got your back.
owner. All right, you guys are all awesome. I can't wait to watch the show again and read all the comments. So appreciate you hanging out with us every week. It does truly bring some joy to our lives. So thank you. Keep punching up.
Cheers.
We'll see y'all next week. Cheers.